Well, I think we should call our annual meeting to order. Those of us who are here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, we have an agenda tonight that involves I, as mayor, giving a short review of what we've done this year, to be followed by Joy, who's going to talk about the budget and our resolution. And then we are going to have a public hearing on the budget to hear if there are any comments on it. And then we'll take a vote, presumably, and we'll then have a few final words. But I will use the podium for this. I think this has been a very eventful year for our town, but one where I also believe we've made a great deal of progress. First of all, I think we all feel that we've emerged from something really horrible. We're not out of it yet, but we are emerging from COVID, and the fact that we can even hold this in person tonight is evidence of that. But there's some people I'd like to thank for what they've done for the town during the time that we've had to be indoors and be so separated from one another. People who've done so much to help bring this town together during these last 2 years. First, I'd like to thank Wicca Davidson and Ann Wild for their running of the listserv. I think that's been a tremendous vehicle for people in this town to stay together, to talk to each other as they can, and to really be able to just discuss the issues of the day and what's on their minds. And that's been very, very important. And they've done a very dedicated and wonderful job in curating that. I'd also like to thank the Community Relations Committee for all the work they've done in trying to hold the town together with various events. Going back to a sort of halfway July 4th festivities of last summer, which was not what we usually have, but still was what we could manage. An October Fest that was nice to have here in the room. Numerous Zoom opportunities, including wine and sake tastings. And also most recently, the very successful Spring Festival that we had here just last week with an art show with a lot of bouncy castles and a lot of ways to bring together people of all ages. This committee is doing a lot, and we're very grateful for what they've done. In terms of general accomplishments for this past year, I think we can list many. First of all, we have certainly maintained our town services, and some our services have even been strengthened because of the interest of residents. We've long had a long-standing program for planting of canopy trees, which has sort of trickled along at 25 or 30 trees in the spring and another amount in the fall. This year, we had almost 70 trees that were planted on residents' properties. To give an example of one program, which often goes undersung, but is really important to the town. And of course, usual services of snow plowing and taking care of sidewalks and taking care of the roads and the trash and the recycling and all that, I think has proceeded without any concern. On other fronts that we've undertaken, we are now allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. That was not a unanimous decision of the council. I, for one, had a somewhat different view, but I'm very honored that my colleagues took it on themselves and worked in a very good and thorough way and came to the decision that the council has made. And so this election, the one that we're having today, 16 and 17-year-olds can vote in our town. And I congratulate my colleagues for having worked on that issue so carefully and thoroughly. We certainly expressed a great concern about safety. We had follow-on work that we had to do after the traffic study of last year. And we carried on with additional work this year, including putting in more speed bumps on Lower Maple, lifting the 4 to 6 restriction on Lower Maple so that there's not as much traffic going on Aspen. But we did so by making sure we mitigated the potential additional traffic on Lower Maple. And we also bought, for an experimental basis, 3 stop signs with LED lights. Maybe you've seen them. One is at Maple at the corner of Aspen, another one is at Rosemary Circle. And we want to see how residents respond to this, but it's a program that we can expand over time to take care of the intersections that people are most concerned about. We've also spent more time dealing with the crosswalk across East-West Highway at Maple. As we've explained to residents, this is going to become an increasingly important matter once the Purple Line construction is completed and the Sleaford underpass becomes an alternative means for our kids to get to BCC High School. And so we are still concerned that while the signal that is now there is better than no signal, which we had before, clearly it's clear to us and clear to the residents who filled out our survey that it is not yet good enough. But we've had progress, but we need to do more. We're also very pleased to have very severely limited gas-powered leaf blowers. I think all of us can realize how much more quiet this town has become. We're very pleased that that's in place and generally being adhered to. We've also received 1.2 million and coming up probably another month, another 1.2 million in funds from the ARPA Act. Joy White has done a very good job of working along with Ellen on developing a policy for how we want to think about using that money. And we expect to have a lot more work to do on that this coming year. But we're very pleased to have made a significant grant to Wonders Daycare this year out of that money. We've also undertaken a major program of improvements in Zimmerman Park, had a very intense series of discussions with the residents in that vicinity to finally work out a common set of improvements that will dramatically improve the drainage, connect the path that right now goes through the Dennison Garden and bring it to where the large green area is, where there's currently a curb cut, but that will open up an additional amount of Zimmerman for people to walk and enjoy, but also put in some security fencing along East-West Highway and back along Maple. With those improvements, we will actually have an enlarged open field, which will be usable much more of the year, but also will allow us from time to time to complete the fencing with temporary fencing for dog exercise areas on a schedule that we still have to work out, but something that'll be done on an occasional basis. Then, of course, we've had a great deal of work to do with the redevelopment of the 4-H property, which we're now calling the Corso Project, because that's what the new owners call it. We all know it'll be a retirement community. And while there's a great deal more work to be done, I think we can take satisfaction that two of the key asks that the town put out in the letter of last September have been accepted by the developers. First, that there will not be any new road with cut through traffic. And secondly, they're preserving the woods, both the 2 acres on the west side as well as the acre on the north side. We've also spent a great deal of time on county issues, dealing with the with Thrive, the whole plan that the county has for a brand new master plan, if you will, for what the county needs to do over the next 50 years. The town has written a couple of letters. Irene Lane has done a terrific job in coordinating work with other communities. Indeed, I know you've been involved in that as well. And I think our letter has been very well received by county council members that we've spoken to, and are taking seriously points of economic development and also the importance of using the local master plan process for subsequent work that might be done in actual zoning changes that could arise out of Thrive. Speaking of zoning, Irene and Ellen did a terrific job of organizing a series of seminars for residents just to explain what was afoot. And there's a lot more work to be done, and we don't know when real action will be uptaken by the county council, but we do know that there is a serious effort on the part of the county to look hard at changing our single-family residential zoning to allowing multifamily dwellings. And we're at the point now of really trying to work with the residents to make sure that everybody is aware of the changes that could happen and feels fully informed and able to interact with the council as we continue to work on what our own position will be that will have to take some time next year. Then we've also spent a great deal of time on the development of the parks behind the Farm Women's Market. This is a project that goes back 6 years when many of us worked on the Bethesda downtown plan and really overcame objections at that time from the planning board and went directly to the county council to get the commitment that conversion of the 2 surface parking lots near the Farm Women's Market is the highest and best use of that land. And after a lot of work that we thought we were gaining momentum with that, then of course COVID hit, everything stopped. But coming out of that, we're very pleased that the developers have taken it up, want to pursue it, and that we received general support for this. I'm proud of the fact, and I think all of us should be, that the town of Chevy Chase has taken a lead in demonstrating our commitment to this. We have pledged up to $4 million, and I can't tell you how unusual it is for a municipality to pledge for the development of a park or 2 parks that are actually not in our borders of our own town. But obviously, we know how important these parks are for ourselves, but also for Bethesda. And we have the funds, we can help out. And I think our momentum that we established by coming out of the gate with our grant really put important momentum behind this project, and it's been appreciated by the developers and by our county officials. We also now have another $3.5 million, which has come from the state. And now we are waiting for the final piece to come from the county. We don't know exactly when that will emerge, but we understand it will in time to be put into an amendment to the CIP, the Capital Investment Program, sometime in the next couple of months. So our hope is that in due course we'll get the complete financial plan and the developers can proceed with their work. But this would be a great accomplishment for this town to have basically been instrumental in developing another 2.5 acres of urban green space in downtown Bethesda. So for all of this, there are a lot of people to thank. That's always the fun part, things to do. First, my colleagues, Ellen Erickson, Joy White, Joel Rubin, and Irene Lane. Thank you very much. This has been a very close and collegial group of people to work with. I've really been honored to have been a part of the group and to have learned from everybody, to have really felt that we all came together. And it's something that I wrote in my campaign piece, the first one I put out this spring, earlier this month, when I said I've come very much to the view that with a council or with a board, for that matter, that whatever the views are of individuals, the group as a whole will come out with a better view. And the job of someone like myself as mayor is not so much to impose my views, but to listen carefully and find that center of gravity for what pulls together the council. And I'm proud of the work we've done together and how we've done it in a very collegial and open way, and thoughtfully and also seriously engaging residents. So thank you all very much. I also want to thank the committees who've done a lot of very outstanding work. Dan Clahosi, who's been the chair of the Climate and Environment Committee, Dean Ingram, chair of the Long Range Planning and the Land Use Committee, Rich Brancato, head of Public Services, Tambra Leonard and Quinn Tron, who have been the joint chairs of the Community Relations Committee, and finally Chris Brew and Ken Rubin, joint chairs of the 4-H Special Committee that have advised the council on that project. And I'd also like to thank all the residents for their input, for the letters they write, for the surveys they answer, to the town forums they attend. I won't say that has not always, sometimes that's been contentious, but that's okay. That's part of the democratic process. And it's important for us as council members to listen, hear, and respond. And finally, I'm absolutely not last. I want to thank the town staff. As many of you know, we've been short-staffed this year for a variety of reasons, but we have a stalwart staff with Dave Walton here, Miguel, who is our head of all maintenance, and Todd Hoffman, who is on the screen, and just a superb town manager who's been here longer than most of us have been alive, I believe. That's a fair way to say it. But we are very well served by this very dedicated staff that not only do a huge amount of work, but also offer to us in the town council an immense service of good quality advice and thoughtful consideration of issues that keep us from making lots of mistakes and often pointing the way that we should look ahead. And looking ahead for next year, no shortage of new opportunities and work for all of us. First of all, we'll be deeply engaged in Corso as they proceed forward with their plans. We also expect the Purple Line construction to start anew. And while the mitigation that the town has negotiated for is in place, a higher noise wall, and also not having a noise device go off all the time at the portal into Bethesda, we nonetheless have to bird dog that carefully and be very aware of that construction and make sure that the noise and the dislocation of the construction doesn't bother our neighbors in any undue way. On the new parks, obviously we seek the finalization of the financial plan, and we are going to have to then work with a whole series of documents that will memorialize the mutual commitments and also the commitments we've asked for as part of the resolution that we passed. And this includes an open and dynamic charrette process so that the residents near and around the parks will be able to be engaged in what amenities go onto those parks. We'll also have to follow the permitting process carefully to make sure that the site plan and the permits basically adhere to the concept plan, which was the basis on which we provided our funds. We also obviously will pay close attention to the further development of Thrive as a master plan for the county, and any zoning and any zoning text amendments that may be presented to the county council in the course of next year. We'll be working with the ARPA allocations and looking for ways to spend that money, which has to be committed by the end of 2024. Particularly, we'll be looking at infrastructure and stormwater management in the town. And finally, and by no means last, having worked through this year, being so short-staffed is vital that this town build up our staff in town services. And we'll be looking for new people to join and augment what we can do beyond what David and Dave and Todd do in our office. So we will have a busy year. I look forward to working with the town council, many of whom will be the same people coming back, we presume, and at least one new member, but also with the residents as we continue to try to make our town even better. Thank you all very much. It's been my honor to serve this year as mayor. All right, thank you. Let me now turn it to Joy White, our treasurer, will lead us through the discussion of the budget, how it looks this year and how it will look next year. And then we'll take it from there. Joy.
Good evening, neighbors. It has been a pleasure and a privilege to serve as treasurer this year. And serving in this role in my first year on the council has given me a window into town operations from a financial perspective, and also helped me truly appreciate how our tax dollars are deployed. As a town, as you know, we're extremely fortunate to be on such sound financial footing, which I will get into in a moment. And so let's go through this year's numbers and then start talking about the FY23 budget. So those who are here can look up on the screen. I won't be offended if you're not looking at me. I have them on the screen in front of me as well. And then we've got folks joining remotely as well. So all of our eyes can be on the screen. So if we look at what's projected for fiscal year 22, so that's the current year that ends on June 30, we're projected to receive $4.6 million in total revenues. And we expect to spend about $2.65 million on operating and capital items. That leaves us with a surplus of $1.95 million. Now, why do we have that surplus? Sorry about that. We have a surplus for a couple of reasons, one of which is a larger than anticipated income tax revenues this year. That was really quite extraordinary, and I'll talk about that when we start talking about revenues, revenue projections for next year. And then also, as you know, we had some protracted discussions among residents about the plans for Zimmerman Park, and that led to delaying the expenditure. So really the large expenditures for Zimmerman Park will fall into FY23. So ending up this year, we expect to have a general fund balance of $12.75 million. And as you recall, as our mayor just mentioned, the council agreed to commit $4 million to the creation of the parks at the Farm Women's Market location. And so we have formally obligated those funds for that purpose, and that leaves us a net fund balance of $8.75 million. And also, as the mayor mentioned, we currently have a balance in our ARPA account. This is the grant that we received under the American Rescue Plan Act of $1.1 million, and the town will receive an additional $1.2 million in FY23. So now let's talk about the revenue projections for FY23. So as you can see, of course, income taxes make up the largest share of the town's revenues. So we're projecting a total overall revenues of $3.84 million, of which income taxes make up $3.182 million. We've estimated that the town will collect other sources of revenue as well, such as the county tax duplication reimbursement of $235,000, real property taxes of $128,500, highway user revenue of $127,000, and other revenue of $111,000. And then finally, the very small cable TV and permit fees of $62,000. I would just like to mention in that other revenue category, for this past year, we received $16,000 in revenues from these parking meters. And that's just because of the change in the way the parking meters charge you. Used to be you put coins, and if somebody, you know, overstayed their parking and didn't get a ticket, well, we didn't get any more revenue. But now that everybody has to either use the app or pay by a credit card, you have to actually commit to a certain amount and you can't walk away. So that's added to our revenues. I would like to say something about the income taxes for a moment. So we, as you know, the town doesn't actually levy income taxes, but we receive 17% of the 3.2% of state income taxes that go to the county. So a lot of inside baseball there. I talked about property tax rates that also form part of our income. And the property tax rate that is levied this year, or that the town is proposing for FY23, is 0.0097 cents per $100 of assessed value, which reflects the constant yield tax rate and is equal to $97 per $1 million of a home's assessed value. Comparing our property tax rates to other incorporated municipalities, both those who are immediately adjacent to us and some that are a little bit further afield, our property tax rate is relatively low. Now, having covered revenues, let's talk a little bit about the proposed operating expenditures for FY23. So we're budgeting a total of $3.44 million in operating expenditures. And, you know, this enables us, this expenditure level is enabling us to continue the high quality programs that we all enjoy. And those include expanded off-duty police coverage for traffic enforcement, also sidewalk snow removal. They include professional services, and within the professional services line item, that's covering our municipal legal counsel, code enforcement, management consulting services to the town staff, as well as expert advice to the staff and the council for the Bethesda downtown plan implementation, the development at the 7100 Connecticut Avenue property, which will be named Corso, as well as Purple Line mitigation efforts. You may notice that we plan to spend $300,000 more than have been budgeted for the current fiscal year. And following on the mayor's remarks, part of that is going to be dedicated to additional funding for staff salaries and benefits. We're adding one FTE, one full-time equivalent to the town staff. And we've also increased salaries in line with, to give the staff cost of living increases in line with inflation rates, current inflation rates. We've also added funding to the private tree planting and maintenance programs. And we have happily restored funding to pre-pandemic levels for our special events, which, you know, for the last 2 years have been mostly held online. So woohoo, I'm so glad that we'll actually be able to see each other in person. Also, I would like to point out that costs for sanitation and waste removal are significantly higher this year than they were in prior years. And this is due to higher market costs for labor and fuel that the vendor is passing on to the town, to us. Now let's move over to a discussion of our capital expenditures. So FY23 capital expenditures are budgeted at $357,000. And that is about $200,000 less than we had budgeted for the current fiscal year. And that's primarily due to the reduction in anticipated costs for Zimmerman Park. But you'll see on there that we, for capital expenditures in the coming year, we plan continued maintenance of streets and sidewalks. We'll be planting some new trees, upgrades. We plan some upgrades to the town office here. It is due for a refresh. It's been looking like that for too many years. We'll be making improvements to Zimmerman Park. But note, as we've discussed several times before, we're also, the costs that we will expend for Zimmerman Park will be offset by a grant from the state for park improvement. So now, if I may, let's kind of review just in general what we've discussed and what the hearing will concern this evening, and that is for FY23, the town is projecting 3.84 million in general revenue. We are projecting 3.44 million in operating expenses, and that would lead to a operating surplus of $403,000. From that operating surplus, we subtract $357,500 worth of capital expenditures, and that leads us to, a total very slight budget surplus of $45,000. Adding that to the current fund balance that we have, that would, at the end of next year, lead us to a net general fund balance of $8.8 million. In addition to that, in FY23, when we get the second tranche of our ARPA grant, we would have a projected ARPA balance of 2.3 million. But as we will be discussing actually at our next council meeting, we do plan to obligate all of those funds for infrastructure projects. And again, the town residents and council will have an opportunity to discuss those items. And finally, I'd just like to close, kind of like I started, we are in a very fortunate and healthy, sound financial position in the town. We have a healthy reserve, but I think this slide, and I do want to thank the town staff for putting this together, kind of puts it in context. It sounds like it's a very high number, but if we kind of look back over the last, say, 10 years, so even going back to FY13, we're not too much higher than that amount. It's kind of fluctuated somewhat over the years. I think, as we're looking forward, particularly this year, at least for people who follow financial markets like I do, there's been quite a lot of volatility in markets. We may see some volatility in income tax receipts in future years. And so I feel confident that the town is in a great position to be able to continue to provide the services and, continue to augment the assets that we enjoy as a community. So I thank you very much and look forward to discussing with you all the FY23 budget during the hearing.
Okay, well, now, thank you, Joy. Appreciate that. Good run through of everything. And I would now like to open it up for a public hearing. If there are any residents who wish to comment on the budget, the ordinance, please, by all means, you may go to the podium and say your piece. Well, it's maybe a short public hearing. I just want to make sure. I'll ask one more time. All right, I don't see any, oh, Deborah, please.
This is really more of a,
Well, could you introduce yourself?
oh,
please?
Deborah Vollmer. I live at 7202 44th Street, right in the back of this building. But this is really more of a question. I know there was, the council reached out to get people's ideas as to where the ARPA fund should go. And there was a very strong feeling that, for one, Wonders should be getting some of that money. Has any of that money actually gone, or is this something that's still yet to happen?
It is gone.
It is gone to them.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Okay. Well, at this moment, then I will entertain, if there any discussion among my colleagues regarding the budget or the resolution for the ordinance that will set the tax rate for next year. Yes, Ellen.
I have a question. The 17%, is that set by the state?
It is, yes, that is a formula. That's a longstanding formula that has been used to determine how much of the income taxes accrue to the town.
And is that all municipalities in Maryland or just a formula for the town of Chevy Chase?
I can't answer that question.
It's a common
Todd?
formula across all the municipalities. Is that right, Todd?
That is correct.
Thank you.
It was 17% of what we pay to the county. So that's the further multiplication there.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget and the income tax levy that we would be assessing on residents. Do I hear a motion to do that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have passed our budget and the ordinance. Thank you very much. Well, before we close this evening, there's something else I would like to say. Tonight, we'd also like to say goodbye to a member of our council, Ellen Cornelius Erickson. Ellen is leaving the council after a 2-year term. Ellen, I don't know how you managed it. Holding down a full-time job, raising 2 young children, you also managed to put in an enormous amount of effort on behalf of all of us serving on the town council. With Irene, you undertook a series of listening sessions with residents regarding the prospect of zoning changes that would permit multifamily housing in town. You were initially on the 4-H property special committee and have stayed consistently engaged in this matter throughout. You led the town's effort to determine the improvements in Zimmerman Park, spending many hours with Todd and the engineers to understand the infrastructure issues and the constraints and to meet and correspond with residents. You led the council's discussion of lowering the voting age to 16 and believe strongly that the town should proceed with this change. And on every issue that has come before the council, you have demonstrated a high standard of due diligence and care as befits the thoughtful lawyer that you are. So how did you get all this done? I have some clue. Whenever I might ask council members to say when they might be available for a conversation on some issue, I knew what I would expect from you, Ellen. Barney, I'm available today from 4:15 to 4:45, tomorrow from 8:30 to 9, tomorrow afternoon from 3:30 to 3:45, and so it goes through the entire week. I have never known anybody so scheduled to the minute as you have allowed yourself to become, but you mastered it. I marveled at such organization. I felt that you deserved the Hermione Granger Award for time management. No doubt you wished for a time turner, such as what Hermione used to be able to be in 2 places at the same time. As important as your commitment to council affairs has been, your collegiality and a commitment to our collective process of decision-making, showing respect to your colleagues and residents alike has also been paramount to you. And by no means least important, we've enjoyed your sense of humor and your ability to have a good laugh. So thank you very much for your service to our town, Ellen. And we hope that although you are leaving the council, you will still wish to stay engaged in town community service. And Irene and Joel and Joy and I would like to give you a gift, which will be several packages of bulbs that you will get in August or early September. No point delivering them to your house now, but bulbs that we'd like you to plant and enjoy in your garden at your home. as a memory of this, having served with our council, and a reminder that what we do in this council can grow year after year after year, just like the bulbs in this garden, your garden will. So that will be our gift to you. But thank you very much for your service.
Thank you so much. I have one small gift because Barney always saw the need for a spreadsheet. So I have little Post-it notes. Oh, this calls for a spreadsheet. And I'll give them to the rest of you as well. But thank you so much for your organization, Barney, and for keeping so many things going. And Joy, for your in-depth knowledge of finances. I could never do, just one of the many things. But most of all, thank you both for just making this a good time. I think, you know, like you said, we've become friends, we work well together, and as we go on in our town, I think it's so important that we make new friends and get to know each other and not let small differences or differences of opinion come between us. You always try to, you know, say hello and get to know someone new, get to know why they have an opinion or think a certain way. Perhaps if we all, you know, just reach out and talk to each other, get to know new people. Each year, our town will grow and grow, and it's a wonderful town. I love living here. This has been an absolute pleasure to volunteer, and I hope to continue with that. So thank you so much for having me. I have really enjoyed doing this work, and I look forward to all that is to come. You are in great hands. So thank you to the town council and Irene and Joel, who aren't here tonight, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Thank you for that. Well, I think that concludes our business of the day. Is there any other new business that council members wish to raise? If not, I will gavel the annual meeting to close and see you here next year.